My dear friends, have you ever noticed the moment someone ignores us, our mind starts writing its own tragic movie? We replay the scene, we overthink their silence, and suddenly we become prisoners of someone else's attention. But what if I told you the most powerful response to ignorance is no reaction at all? Because sometimes your silence speaks louder than their neglect. When someone ignores you, the first thing your mind wants to do is react. It wants to defend itself, prove itself, show that you matter. But the truth is, the moment you react, you give the other person a silent message: your attention controls me. And that is the moment you lose your power. But when you stay silent, something magical happens. Your silence becomes more powerful than any reaction you could ever give. Because silence is not weakness, it is not surrender, it is not running away. Silence is a declaration, a gentle but firm reminder that you don't need to participate in every emotional storm that others create. You're not obligated to respond to every behavior that tries to pull you into drama or insecurity. Have you ever noticed that when you argue, when you defend, when you chase, you are actually feeding their ego? You are telling them without using words that their behavior is affecting you. But when you stay calm and centered, your silence sends a completely different message. One that says, I refuse to let your actions decide my worth. And that silence, it speaks loudly. It tells people that your dignity is not up for negotiation. It shows them that you are not desperate, that you are not craving their validation, that your self-respect is intact. And this is where you gain a kind of strength that reactions can never give you. Because reacting is easy. Anyone can raise their voice, defend themselves, prove a point, or hit back emotionally. But staying silent when you're being provoked, that requires maturity. It requires emotional mastery. It requires the strength to understand that not every battle deserves your presence. Your silence also creates space for the truth to reveal itself. When you don't react, people start to wonder if they misjudged you. They begin to question their behavior. They start noticing the dignity with which you carry yourself. And slowly they realize that ignoring you didn't make you smaller. It made you stronger. Most importantly, silence protects your peace, because reacting to ignorance drains your energy. It pulls you away from your purpose. It affects your mood, your productivity, your mental clarity. But silence redirects all that energy back to you. It keeps you focused, calm, grounded. And the world sees that. People begin to understand that your silence is not an invitation to walk over you. It's a sign that you won't be dragged into unnecessary chaos. It's a sign that you respect yourself enough to walk away from anything that doesn't align with your emotional well-being. In this silence, you discover something powerful. You don't need to prove your worth. You don't need to fight for a place in someone's life. You don't need to react to every moment of disrespect. Because the ones who truly value you will never make you feel ignored. And the ones who make you feel ignored do not deserve the power to shake your peace. That is the strength of your silence. It is not passive. It is not weak. It is the loudest message you will ever send, without saying a single word. When someone ignores you, something very subtle happens inside your mind. Their silence starts to control your emotions. You begin to wonder why they didn't reply, why they stepped back, why they suddenly changed. And before you even realize it, their behavior starts dictating the rhythm of your thoughts. Their absence becomes louder than their presence ever was. But the moment you decide not to react, you take back the power they unconsciously held over you. You see, reacting immediately is a sign that your emotions are tied to their actions. If they speak, you feel valued. If they remain silent, you feel insecure. If they give attention, you feel important. If they withdraw, you feel unwanted. This emotional dependency quietly builds up without you realizing that your peace is being handed over to someone else, someone who may not even know the weight of the control they hold. But when you choose not to react, when you choose to step back and breathe, something incredible happens. You break this pattern. You tell your mind, their behavior does not get to decide how I feel today. And this awareness alone creates a shift inside you, a shift from being controlled to being in control. Because emotional power is not in reacting, it is in deciding how you want to feel, deciding where to place your energy, deciding whether someone's silence deserves the luxury of entering your inner world. When you don't react, you're telling yourself that your emotions are your responsibility, not theirs. Their silence could be immaturity, discomfort, confusion, ego, or simply life being busy. But your reaction, that matters. And the moment you stop letting their actions dictate your reactions, you free yourself from emotional slavery. You are no longer dancing to the tune of someone else's inconsistency. And here's the beautiful part. People can ignore your message, they can ignore your call, they can ignore your presence, but they can't ignore the calmness of a person who isn't affected by it. Your calmness becomes your shield. Their silence loses its power. The emotional grip they unknowingly had on you starts fading. Suddenly, their behavior no longer controls your mood. You don't lose sleep over unanswered messages. You don't replay conversations in your mind. You don't sit questioning your worth just because someone chose not to respond. Instead, your self-esteem remains intact. Your day remains peaceful, your mind remains stable. And this is where real emotional freedom begins, because reacting gives them control. Not reacting gives you clarity. Reacting makes you a responder in their story. Not reacting makes you the author of your own. When you stop letting the silence trigger your insecurities, you rise above the situation. You learn that staying unaffected is not coldness. It's emotional intelligence. It's understanding that if someone's absence disrupts your peace, they had too much influence over your heart in the first place. By not reacting, you reclaim that influence. You reclaim your balance. You reclaim your inner power. You show yourself that your peace is more valuable than their attention, and your happiness is not negotiable based on how someone chooses to treat you. It's a quiet revolution inside your heart where you stop giving discounts on your emotional stability. And in that moment, you stand taller, stronger, and more in control than ever before. Not because someone changed their behavior, but because you changed your response. Your power returns to you the moment you stop reacting, and once you taste that power, you never want to give it away again. When you choose not to react to being ignored, something profound begins to show in your personality. It's not just silence, it's maturity. Emotional maturity is not measured by how loudly you speak, how quickly you respond, or how aggressively you defend yourself. It is measured by how calmly you carry yourself when someone else tries to disturb your inner world, and ignoring someone's attempts to provoke you, whether intentionally or unintentionally, is one of the strongest signs of that maturity. Most people react instantly. They get triggered, they argue, they blame, they complain, they panic. But reacting instantly is not strength, it is simply the mind's old habits taking over. Real strength lies in pausing, in observing, in understanding, in recognizing that not every situation demands your emotional energy. When someone ignores you, the easy road is to feel hurt and express that hurt. The difficult road is to feel the same hurt, but choose not to let it control your actions. That self-control, that calmness, that is emotional maturity in its purest form. And here's something important. Maturity doesn't mean you don't feel pain. It doesn't mean you don't get disappointed. It doesn't mean you suddenly become numb. No, maturity means you feel all of it. But you don't allow those feelings to dictate what you do next. You don't jump into conclusions. You don't fire back. You don't let the situation pull you down to a level that doesn't match your character. When you stay composed, it shows that your inner stability is stronger than the external chaos. It shows that you see the bigger picture, that their silence might be temporary, their behavior may be based on something unrelated to you, or that engaging emotionally might only worsen things. Instead of reacting from your wounds, you respond from your wisdom, and sometimes the wisest response is no response. This calmness builds respect, not just from others, but from within yourself. You start trusting your own ability to handle tough situations. You begin to realize that you don't have to be reactive to be understood. You don't have to raise your voice for your worth to be heard. You don't have to demand attention to prove that you matter. Your maturity becomes your language. Your silence becomes your strength. And your calmness becomes your message. And the remarkable thing is, people notice. They may not admit it, but they feel the difference. When you don't react, they see that you are not controlled by impulse. They see that you won't be easily shaken. They see that you are not someone who breaks down at small storms. And this unshakable presence makes others think twice about how they treat you. Your maturity becomes a mirror. It reflects back to them their own lack of it. While they might have expected you to panic, chase, complain, or argue, your calmness disarms them. They suddenly realize that the emotional reaction they were expecting from you never came, and that alone teaches them more about your character than any argument ever could. You rise in dignity, you rise in strength, you rise in grace. And here's the beautiful P. Art. The more emotionally mature you become, the less you depend on external validation. You don't need someone's message to feel whole. You don't need someone's attention to feel seen. You don't need someone's approval to feel worthy. Your stability comes from within, from the discipline of choosing peace over chaos, calmness over reaction, wisdom over impulse. This is why not reacting is such a strong sign of maturity, because it takes immense self-awareness to not let your emotions hijack your actions. It takes emotional intelligence to let go of the urge to prove something. And it takes inner confidence to remain composed when others expect you to crumble. When you stop reacting to being ignored, you are not just avoiding drama, you are showing the world and yourself that you are becoming someone whose emotional world is too precious, too grounded, too refined to be shaken by the temporary behavior of others. That is emotional maturity, and it grows louder every time you choose peace over reaction. When someone ignores you, your mind doesn't stay quiet. It begins to create its own noise. It starts whispering stories, building assumptions, imagining conversations that never happened, and painting scenarios that are far from reality. Overthinking is like a movie director that loves drama. It creates scenes, adds intensity, exaggerates emotions, and makes everything look far worse than it actually is. And the moment you react, you feed this director. You give it a script, you give it energy, and suddenly the drama keeps going. But when you choose not to react, when you choose silence over impulsiveness, you take the pen back from the hands of your overthinking mind. You stop giving it fuel. You stop giving it reasons to create new scenes. Your silence becomes the switch that turns off the noise. Overthinking grows in reaction. It survives on emotional responses. It gets stronger when you chase answers, when you desperately try to decode every word, every moment, every silence. But when there is no reaction, the overthinking mind has nothing to grab onto. It has nothing to spin, nothing to stretch, nothing to exaggerate. It begins to slow down, it begins to settle. Imagine a pond. When you throw stones into it, the water becomes disturbed, unclear, full of ripples. You cannot see your reflection in disturbed water. This is what reacting does. It keeps your emotional water shaking, rippling, unsettled. But when you choose silence, when you stop throwing stones, the pond becomes still again. And in that stillness, clarity finally appears. This clarity is powerful, because when you're not reacting, you can finally observe the situation as it is, not as your emotions paint it to be. You start seeing the difference between someone's temporary behavior and your permanent worth. You begin to realize that not every unanswered message is a personal attack. Not every delayed response is disrespect. Not every silence has hidden meaning. Sometimes life gets busy. Sometimes people don't know what to say. Sometimes they're dealing with their own storm. Sometimes it has nothing to do with you at all. But your mind will not tell you this when you're overthinking. It will tell you something is wrong, you're being avoided, you're not important, because overthinking thrives on emotional reaction. When you don't react, you break this cycle. You disconnect the wires that keep the mental chaos alive. When you don't react, you create space. Space to breathe, space to understand, space to calm down, space to choose a wiser response. And in that space, your mind slowly begins to unclench. It stops replaying the same scene again and again. It stops writing painful stories. It stops pulling you into fear-based assumptions. Instead, you begin to think from clarity, not confusion. From peace, not panic. From wisdom, not insecurity. Because silence gives you time. Time gives you perspective. Perspective gives you peace. Overthinking becomes powerless when you don't feed it with reaction. It melts, it dissolves, it softens. You no longer feel the urge to check your phone every few minutes. You no longer feel that knot in your chest. You no longer question your worth just because someone didn't respond the way you expected. Your silence becomes a message to your own mind. You are safe, you are enough, you are not in danger. Relax, and this self-assurance is what heals you. Because most of the pain of being ignored doesn't come from the silence of others. It comes from the stories your mind tells you about that silence. But when you choose not to react, you end those stories before they even begin. You reclaim your inner peace. You protect your heart from unnecessary suffering. You uplift yourself above emotional turbulence. And in that calmness, you rediscover a truth you often forget. Your peace is too valuable to be shaken by someone's temporary silence. This is why not reacting is so powerful. It doesn't just silence the world outside, it silences the chaos within. When someone ignores you, the first thing you begin to question is yourself. You start asking, did I say something wrong? Did I do something wrong? Am I not important enough? And slowly, you start sinking into the belief that their behavior is a mirror of your worth. But the moment you stop reacting to being ignored, a very powerful realization begins to rise inside you. The people who truly value you will never let you feel invisible. And the people who don't, their distance is actually clarity. When you do not react, you give life the chance to show you who really belongs with you. Because those who value you, genuinely value you, won't let silence become the language between you. They won't create confusion. They won't leave you guessing. They won't allow their actions to wound your heart. These are the people who will reach out, who will check on you, who will give explanations, who will keep communication open, and who will never make you doubt your place in their life. But when you react impulsively, when you chase, when you question, when you get upset, you blur the clarity. Your reaction covers the truth of the situation. But when you stay silent, when you let things unfold naturally, when you allow people to show their real priorities without your interference, the truth reveals itself effortlessly. Your calmness becomes a test, and not of your strength, but of their intention. If someone truly values your presence, they will notice your silence. They will feel your absence. They will come forward to bridge the gap. They will not vanish deeper into their own world. They will step toward you, not away from you. And you won't have to beg for that. Real connections don't require chasing, they require understanding. But if someone doesn't value you, your silence becomes the beginning of distance. They will drift further away. They will not check on you. They will not explain. They will not notice that something has changed. And as painful as that may feel, it is actually a blessing disguised as disappointment. Because it shows you without doubt, without confusion, who is not meant to walk with you in the long run. Your silence creates a natural filter. It separates who appreciates you from who takes you for granted. It separates who respects you from who only uses your presence when convenient. It separates who chooses you from who chooses everyone except you. And here lies the real beauty. This clarity saves you. It saves your heart from investing in the wrong people. It saves your time from people who don't reciprocate. It saves your energy from bonds that aren't genuine. It saves your emotions from those who see your love as an option, not a priority. When you don't react, you stop forcing connections. You stop trying to make people stay. You stop holding on to dead conversations, dead efforts, dead interests. You begin to understand that if someone truly wants you in their life, they will make space for you without you having to fight for it. And slowly, your inner world begins to shift. You realize that it's better to have a few people who deeply value you than many who casually tolerate you. You start appreciating the souls who check on you without being asked, who respond with warmth, who make you feel seen and heard. You start understanding the true meaning of emotional safety and genuine presence, and you also learn not to punish yourself when someone doesn't value you. Their behavior speaks about their heart, not yours. Their silence reflects their priorities, not your inadequacy. Their ignorance reveals their character, not your worth. This clarity liberates you. You begin to walk with more confidence because you now understand that not everyone deserves a seat in your emotional world. You begin to love yourself more because you see how much peace you gain when you stop reacting. You begin to value your presence more because you realize that your energy is special, your time is precious, and your heart is not something to be ignored or mishandled. Your silence becomes your guide. It leads the right people closer. It lets the wrong ones walk away. But most importantly, it teaches you the greatest lesson. When you stop reacting, you stop losing yourself for those who never truly saw you. And you start saving yourself for those who always will. When you choose not to react to being ignored, something very powerful happens internally. You stop chasing people and you start choosing yourself. You realize that your attention, your time, your emotional energy, these are not cheap things to be handed out to anyone who doesn't value them. And the moment you stop running behind people who pull away from you, you begin a journey back toward your own self-worth. Think about how much energy is wasted when you react, when you over-explain, when you seek closure, when you demand answers, when you chase someone's attention, when you try to fix what the other person isn't even trying to maintain. Every reaction drains a part of you. It empties your emotional battery. It leaves you exhausted, confused, and disappointed. But when you don't react, that same energy returns to you. It doesn't disappear. It comes back home, to your mind, to your peace, to your heart. You begin to see that your energy is sacred. It cannot be scattered everywhere. It cannot be invested in people who respond only when it benefits them. It cannot be spent on those who treat you like a background option. The moment you stop reacting, your energy starts flowing inward instead of outward. You start healing instead of hurting. You start growing instead of breaking. You discover something profound. Your energy belongs where it is respected, not where you have to fight for basic acknowledgement. And when you don't react, when you don't chase, when you don't try to force someone to value why, you protect that energy. You protect your mental space from being cluttered by someone else's indifference. You protect your heart from people who don't know how to handle it. You protect your spirit from relationships that drain you more than they nourish you. There is a moment in every person's life where they must decide, do I keep chasing people who don't see my worth, or do I walk back home to myself? When you choose not to react, you choose the second. You choose to protect the peace inside you. You choose to stop begging for what should come naturally. You choose to stop being emotionally available to those who are emotionally absent. You choose yourself, not from ego but from wisdom. And something beautiful happens when you protect your energy. Your inner world starts to transform. You reclaim your calmness. You reclaim your self-respect. You reclaim your dignity. You reclaim your sense of balance. You start giving your time to people who truly appreciate it. You start sharing your heart with people who respect it. You start giving your attention to people who reciprocate it. You realize you don't have to fight for love. You don't have to chase respect. You don't have to plead for importance. Where you truly belong, you will be valued effortlessly. This understanding becomes a form of emotional protection. It acts like a shield between you and unnecessary pain. It teaches you that you do not have to participate in every emotional game. You do not have to answer every silence. You do not have to heal every connection. You do not have to pour love into someone who is holding a closed cup. Your peace becomes your priority. Your energy becomes your responsibility. Your heart becomes your protector. And here's the magic. When you stop reacting, you start attracting. You attract healthier relationships. You attract calmer conversations. You attract people who appreciate stability. You attract connections that feel natural instead of forced. You attract people who see your silence not as weakness, but as emotional strength, because only the right people recognize the value of someone who protects their inner peace. Only the right people understand the maturity behind choosing calmness over chaos. Only the right people appreciate the strength in someone who refuses to react to disrespect. Protecting your energy doesn't mean you are closing yourself off from the world. It means you are opening yourself only to the right parts of it. It means you are finally choosing people who feed your soul, not drain it. It means you are finally learning that the most important relationship you will ever have is with yourself. And when you learn to protect your energy, you stop losing pieces of yourself for people who never deserve them. You become whole again. You become grounded again. You become peaceful again. And this, more than anything, is the beginning of emotional freedom. When you choose not to react to being ignored, something quietly beautiful begins to grow inside you, your self-worth. Because every time you decide, I will not respond from insecurity, you are telling yourself, I deserve better than this. When someone ignores you, your mind tries to convince you that you are not worthy, not important, not valued. But when you do not react, you push back against that narrative. You teach your mind that your worth is not dependent on who replies to you and who doesn't. It comes from who you are, not from how others treat you. Ignoring someone's behavior is not about ego. It is about remembering your value. Reacting instantly usually comes from fear. The fear of losing someone, fear of being misunderstood, fear of not being enough. But when you pause and choose silence, you show yourself that you are not afraid of losing people who have no intention of staying. You are not afraid of being misunderstood by those who never cared to understand you. You are not afraid of being alone because you have learned how to stand with yourself. And this is where self-worth grows strongest. In those moments when you choose dignity over desperation, when you choose calmness over chaos, when you choose peace over proving a point, not reacting is not about pretending that the silence doesn't hurt. It does. But you choose to rise above it. You choose to protect your heart instead of exposing it to someone who doesn't value it. You choose to respect yourself even when someone else fails to. Your self-worth grows every time you resist the urge to chase someone who is walking away. It grows every time you refuse to argue for your place in someone's life. It grows every time you tell yourself, if they wanted to talk, they would. If they valued me, they would show it. If I mattered, I wouldn't have to beg. This inner dialogue strengthens your identity. It reminds you that you are not dependent on crumbs of attention. You don't need to be someone's second option. You don't need to force people to see your value. Those who are meant to stay will never make you question it. And slowly, something shifts. You stop blaming yourself for the behavior of others. You stop internalizing their silence as your fault. You stop shrinking yourself just to fit into someone else's limited capacity. You stop believing that you are unworthy simply because someone failed to see your worth. You begin to realize that the inability to appreciate you is not a reflection of your value. It is a reflection of their blindness. Self-worth is not loud, it's quiet. It's in the decision you make not to respond. It's in the conversation you choose not to chase. It's in the message you decide not to send again. It's in the dignity you maintain, even when your heart wants to break. It's in the grace you show, even when your emotions are hurting. It's in the self-respect that whispers, you are enough, even if they don't see it. And this self-worth begins to influence everything around you. You no longer settle for half-hearted efforts. You no longer allow inconsistent people into your emotional space. You no longer tolerate disrespect disguised as busy. You no longer cling to relationships that make you question your value. Instead, you gravitate toward people who uplift you, who respond with warmth, who care genuinely, who understand deeply, who make you feel seen and safe. Your silence becomes a declaration, not of weakness,